Hello, and welcome to the Atlanta Opera Podcast. My name is Evan Rogister, and I'm the conductor of Atlanta Opera's production of Verdi's La Traviata. Join me as I share with you insight into Verdi's masterpiece with a score that pulses with dramatic intensity and tenderness. Here are 5 things you need to know about La Traviata. Number 1, sources of inspiration. In Verdi's estate outside of Busseto, Italy, which is near Parma and by extension also not so far from Milan, Verdi's composition desk sat in the middle of the room, and on that were 3 separate collections of the complete works of Shakespeare, the complete works of Mozart, and the complete works of Haydn. So we know that at the time that Verdi was writing this masterpiece, La Traviata, he was inspired by Shakespeare, the economy of language, the ultimate dramatist, and the simplicity and yet sophistication of the classical period in Mozart and Haydn. I would add to that Verdi is very much inspired by Beethoven. If you think this piece was written in 1853, only about 25 years after the death of Beethoven, he is clearly in command of economical use of notes to their maximum dramatic impact. Number 2, the middle period of Verdi. Giuseppe Verdi's works are divided into 3 major periods. The early works, which reach their high point with Macbeth, his first work on a Shakespeare text. This period already achieved a extension of the bel canto, a new way of writing music, and it was extremely successful. The middle period of Verdi, which we think of consisting of Rigoletto, Il Trovatore, and La Traviata, are 3 masterpieces written one after another. Traviata is the last of those, and I've been saying to the orchestra recently that had he laid down his pen finishing Traviata, we would still consider Verdi to be one of the great masters on the same level as Beethoven, Mozart, etc. Then the third period of Verdi, in which we have the masterpieces of Don Carlo, Aida, the second version of Simon Boccanegra, the Otello, and finally Falstaff, which were pieces that have a sophistication never reached again to this day. Many, many great composers burn out very quickly. Verdi lived into his old age, stopped composing several times. And so it's remarkable to see a young man master, a middle-aged master, and a mature master. Number 3, this opera is extremely personal to Giuseppe Verdi and his own life story. In his lifetime, Verdi lived a very tragic life himself. He had a wonderful family at a young age with a wife and 2 children. He very tragically lost them to disease. It took him many years to work through this grief. He never overcame it, and much of that grieving and personal development plays out through his music. But having lost his family, he found another life partner, Giuseppina Streponi, a great Italian soprano. They became a couple out of wedlock. In Busseto, in this small town where Verdi lived, his former father-in-law, the father of his deceased wife, shamed him publicly for living with a woman with whom he was not married. She, in fact, was divorced to make it worse. Verdi very bravely wrote a letter to his former father-in-law saying, "Stop this shaming of Giuseppina. Stop the shaming of me. This is my life partner. I have found her. I love her. And we shall live like this." And you can imagine that it is then not far at all for him to be writing about a woman who is shamed by society, Violetta, La Traviata, a father-in-law to be, the father of Alfredo, who interferes and says, "Alfredo, you may not marry Violetta." So all of these very deep lines of shame came straight out of Verdi's own life, and he threw it into this work. Number 4, popular music. Verdi visited the salons of Paris. He heard the tunes being played at parties, chief amongst which were tunes written by Frédéric Chopin, and he incorporated these into his piece La Traviata, which takes place in a Parisian salon. The themes feel accessible to the audience because they are popular music. They are not exact quotes, but through Verdi's artistic lens, we hear popular music of the day. Falsely so, I would argue, to be light-hearted music. The entire concept of Traviata is a light-hearted mask which covers up the impending death of a sick woman. Number 5, chiaro scuro, the light and the dark. Central to almost all great Italian work is the idea that in the light there is dark, vice versa, in the dark there is light. Verdi's work, La Traviata, whilst it seems to be full of joy, the word O gioia is sung by Violetta. It is also filled with her knowledge from the very beginning that her life is almost spent. Verdi is the original film composer. In fact, the prelude to Act 1 of La Traviata is a flashback in invocation of the death of Violetta, her final moments. And then Verdi does the actual scenic cut, and the music becomes drug-infused, a manic energy. This is a party that Violetta is throwing. It's one of her first times back in society, and she is pretending to be healthy again. It's very interesting that the brindisi, which is the famous drinking song we hear at all sorts of opera galas, played in many concerts to invoke joy, is actually a piece not just about joy, but it is about the risk of death at any moment. So drink up, because you have to seize the moment, otherwise life is dark. Thank you all for joining me on the Atlanta Opera Podcast. If you enjoyed learning more about La Traviata, please rate and review this podcast on Apple Podcasts. It's a great way for more people like you to find out about our content. And don't forget to follow the Atlanta Opera Podcast for more great episodes.